The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Good morning, Philadelphia. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show. Today's show is brought to you by the law office of Michael Cardamone. If you're injured, I'm going to tell you, folks, this is the top work injury law firm in the state of Pennsylvania. If you're injured, give them a call. Cardamone Law Office is 215-206-9068. And we just happen to have Michael Cardamone on the show today. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Steve. How are you?
Doing well. We've been promoting your show all week, and we just got a text message, someone wanting to know, do you handle all of Pennsylvania?
Absolutely, yeah. Most of our practice is from, I would say, York eastward, but we do take cases if they're, if they're large enough in the western part of the state. So we won't take a 1 or 2 month type of claim out there. We'd refer it out to somebody, but if the case is large enough, we would handle it. And really, travel is not an issue as much anymore. We are still proceeding by video in about 90% of our hearings and mediations, and so it's really opened up the entire state for the attorneys to represent injured workers. So, the statute is the same from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh to Erie to Smethport to Williamsport or wherever. So it's the same law in the same state. And so we're now able to handle those cases a little bit more efficiently without so much travel involved.
Well, Michael has been with us for several years. He's with us every month. He's with us the last Tuesday of the month, so it's easy to keep up with him. Michael, tell people about your firm.
Sure. We are a pretty rare firm in Pennsylvania. All we do is workers' comp and only for injured workers. We never represent the employers or the insurance companies. And so we're a small boutique firm. We have 2 attorneys, and then we have a staff with an office manager and a Spanish translator. And so we like to keep it small and focused. We refer other cases out to our esteemed colleagues. We're very accessible. We'll come to people's homes or apartments or wherever they live. If they want to do a video call, that's great. If they want to come into one of our offices, that's great. Our main office is in Lansdale, right next to the train tracks, but we have other space in Philadelphia and Bluebell and Lancaster, et cetera. So we're rare in the sense that most firms that handle workers' comp law will also tend to handle personal injury or Social Security disability, things like this. But we're only workers' comp, so we've sort of created our name in that vein to stand out a little bit.
Well, today, as we do every month when we have Michael on, what we want you to know is when you get injured on the job, the insurance company has very good negotiators, and they would love just to negotiate with you because you don't do this for a living, but you can have Michael's firm represent you. You don't have to even write a check out. It's all done on a per case basis based on what they get you. And so we want you and you'll learn about this throughout the show. We want you to have someone who knows what they're doing, who negotiates these settlements all the time, and that's the law office of Michael Cardamone.
Yeah, I think the stats, just in that regard, Steve, the stats will show that injured workers with attorneys will tend to make 2 to 3 times more money than without one. So, there's two big myths that's circulating out there. One is you need money to hire a lawyer, not in workers' comp. And number two, that if you get a lawyer, you might get fired. And that's not true. They can fire you for other reasons, but not because you're seeking legal advice. So we try to really stress these things to the general public, because a lot of people are out there floating along and they may be on workers' comp or pursuing it. They don't have representation, and they don't even know they're losing money by not getting the expert help. So we try to really, through this radio show and other means, whether it's our blog or website or just talking to people in general, we really try to get those two main points across, because it's really important to get people to understand that, you don't have to write us a check. It's a contingent fee system, and you're going to do much better when you have help on your side.
Well, Michael, what is workers' comp? I mean, does someone get a check in the mail?
Yeah, so if you're on workers' comp, you'll get a check either weekly or bi-weekly. Technically, it's supposed to be in the same pay as you did with your regular paycheck. So if you got a check before you got hurt from your employer every week, your comp check should be every week. If it was bi-weekly, then your comp check should be bi-weekly. That's not always the case in workers' comp, but the reality is, yes, you get a physical check in the mail. More and more, there's direct deposit as an option. Probably, I'm going to say 15 to 20% of our cases, the injured workers getting direct deposit, but otherwise it's still, the old school way of getting a check in the mail. So yeah, workers' comp it's a wage replacement system. It's not dollar for dollar. It's generally 2/3 of your average weekly wage, up to a max rate each week, each year. But if you're a low wage earner, you might get 90% of your average weekly wage. So it depends where you fall in with the numbers.
I know there's people wondering, well, how long does it take to start getting my first benefit check?
Well, it really depends. I mean, it should be quick. Once you give notice of a work injury, the insurance carrier in Pennsylvania or the employer has 21 days to investigate it, and they can issue either a notice of temporary compensation payable, which is temporarily accepting the claim, but also gives them the right to revoke it and deny it within 90 days, or a notice of comp payable, which is an admission, or a notice of denial, which is appeal by filing a claim petition. So if your claim is accepted, you have to be out for 2 weeks or more to get paid back from the first day, because there's a 7-day waiting period. So I know that sounds a little confusing, but the answer basically is it really depends when the insurance company accepts your case, and then you should get paid within a few weeks after that.
How does a person get on workers' comp, Michael?
The first thing, of course, if you believe you got hurt at work, is to give notice. Notice is so important. If you don't give notice within 120 days of when you got injured, or when you first believed your condition may be work-related, then you have no case no matter what, even if your injuries are crippling or just catastrophic. So, and the sooner you give notice, the better, because you cannot get wage loss benefits until you give notice. And so that starts the process. Giving notice doesn't have to be written, but of course that's preferred, because then you'll have more solid evidence of it. And then once you give notice, we go back to what I was just talking about. They have 21 days to investigate, accept the claim, temporarily accept it, or just deny it. So the whole process basically starts with saying, hey, to your manager, supervisor, the owner, I got hurt at work. I hurt my back or my knee or whatever. Here's how it happened, and here's the date that it happened. You want to be specific. A lot of people will claim, they'll tell their employer that their back is hurting. And sometimes those claims are denied because the employer will say, yeah, you said your back was hurting, but you never said it was because of a work activity or a work injury. So people need to be really specific when they give notice, and then that gets the ball rolling.
I wonder, because you see it in movies, do they spy on you?
Yeah, they do, and they're pretty good at it. Although I have some clients who are very on guard about it, and they catch them, and sometimes they're like chasing our clients on the road, and it becomes a little dangerous. Yeah, I've heard some crazy stories. I even had one case where they followed a client into a gym, like a Planet Fitness, and she was walking on the treadmill. She had a back injury, but walking didn't hurt her. It was lifting and bending and helping patients that hurt her. And her doctor said, yeah, if you can walk, then you should walk. You should try to stay in shape as you're recovering. And they followed her in and taped her, video recorded her on the treadmill.
Wow.
And they made a big deal over it. And the judge said, it basically ignored it, saying the doctor said it's okay. Because people's injuries are very quirky. Some people with a back injury, they can't reach overhead or bend over, but they're fine walking. And other people can't walk well, but they can bend fine. It's a situation by situation thing. So they can be very aggressive with the videotaping. But more recently, I would say the focus, Steve, is social media. Really investigating that and looking at Facebook postings and Instagram and YouTube and all these things and trying to extrapolate, well, if they can do this, then why can't they do that? Or if they're able to do this, then maybe they have an earning power. Or so social media investigation seems to be more common now than the old-fashioned way of following somebody around.
Michael, do you educate your clients when they secure your representation about what they should look at, like we're talking about surveillance video and spying? Do you educate your clients on that?
Yeah, we do. And so it's really important. And I tell them, look, I have your medical records. We know you're hurt. You had surgery. You're getting injections. We know that you're injured. But everything is about perception. And if you're having a good day and you're outside weeding or taking your trash cans out, they might try to make a big deal over it. And then, what we have to do is say, okay, how does that compare to their pre-injury job? If they had to lift heavy boxes all day for 8 hours and they're 80-pound boxes and they're outside getting their mail, which weighs less than a pound, okay, not really a big deal. There's nothing inconsistent there. So most people are honest, of course, but you do want to tell them to look out because you don't want to give off a perception that you're physically active when you're really not. Somebody might be outside walking their dog, and the surveillance people might have spent 2 weeks trying to get somebody on video doing something, and they send you a video of 5 minutes walking a dog, and you say, yeah, but you spent 2 weeks and that's all you got? So it's you have to put everything in context and also sort of compare it to what their medical records say and what their job required, because a lot of times we get video and it's silly. It's somebody carrying a coffee from Wawa into their car, and they make a big deal over it, saying the subject does not appear to be wincing and they appear to be moving about freely and they don't have any orthopedic devices assisting them. And they make all these insinuations as if the person's just perfectly fine.
Right.
And we say, listen, the person's not claiming they're a paraplegic in this case. They have a back injury, but they're allowed to get out of their house and get coffee, for God's sake. So we find a lot of surveillance to be silly, but not always. Sometimes they'll catch somebody working, and that's a big no-no. You got to report your earnings if you're working, things like that. So I don't find that the surveillance as common anymore. It's like I said, it's a lot more focused on the social media stuff.
This is why it's so important to have a firm like Michael Cardamone, because if you're talking to the insurance companies, you could say the wrong thing. You could actually hurt yourself. Once you sign with Michael, you don't have to talk to insurance companies anymore. Is that correct?
Yeah, we take that right off their back, and it's a big relief for a lot of people, especially because the claims reps or adjusters, as we call them, a lot of them are overwhelmed with cases and files, and they tend, in general, they tend not to be good at communicating and getting back to people. And we have one person after another saying they've tried to get in touch with the adjuster, they never get called back. Some are better than others, like any field. And but when we take over, they can't communicate unilaterally with the injured worker. They would have to, for example, if they send them a letter, we have to be carbon copied on it. They're not allowed to call them on the phone and speak to them directly. So having representation will level the playing field out for the for our clients.
When, Michael, when does a workers' comp case end?
The most common way I would say is with a lump sum settlement. In Pennsylvania, we call it a compromise and release agreement, where the parties enter into a final settlement for a specific date of injury, or maybe a couple dates of injury with the same employer, for a lump sum of money, and the termination of medical benefits in most cases. Sometimes they continue on for some defined period of time, but usually it's in a settlement called a compromise and release agreement. It has to be approved at a hearing by a judge. The judge doesn't care about the amount. That's different in every case, but they need to make sure the injured worker read the agreement, understood it, signed it. They're doing it voluntarily, these kind of things. It's a pretty quick, cursory hearing. Another way is if you're found to be fully recovered by a judge, that will pretty much end your case. There are ways to try to petition to reinstate benefits, but that's a difficult thing to do once you're found recovered. Or somebody just returns to work. They recover, they return to their pre-injury job full duty or somewhere else with no restrictions, and the case just fizzles out. There's no more wage loss owed, and maybe the case didn't officially close with that compromise and release, but they're not treating anymore, so the case is basically just dormant because the person's not treating, and they're working at their regular wages. So those are the three most common scenarios: the settlement of the entire case, a finding of a full recovery by a judge, or somebody returns to work, at their regular pay and they stop treating.
Okay, can a person, can they receive other benefits while they're on workers' comp, Michael?
Absolutely, Steve. I would say the most common benefits while somebody's on workers' comp would be Social Security disability, in which case the Social Security or SSD benefits would be reduced potentially based on the workers' comp. It goes through a formula because you can't receive more than 80% of your usual earnings between both benefits. They don't want people to make more money not working than working. So there's an offset. Or someone could be on workers' comp and Social Security retirement benefits, in which case if they got on the SSR benefits after the date of injury, the workers' comp would be reduced by 50% of the Social Security amount. Or unemployment comp. If somebody's able and available to work in some capacity, even if they have a lot of restrictions, they could be on unemployment comp as they're pursuing workers' comp. And then if they get on workers' comp, there'll be a credit, meaning there'll be a reduction in the workers' comp based on how much they got in the net unemployment benefit. So I would say unemployment comp, Social Security disability, probably the two most common benefits that somebody could be on in addition to workers' comp.
I want people to know you might know somebody, whether it's a family member, a friend, who has been injured at work, who aren't represented. First of all, if you want to really do them a favor, you should tell them they need to contact Michael Cardamone. But if you've missed any part of today's show, you can actually go to iHeart in the iHeart library and bring up Ask the Experts Philadelphia Workers' Comp, and you can actually go back and listen to today's show. We're also on YouTube, so you have a lot of ways to go and listen to the show. And we also offer, if you're watching it, you can actually see to the right of the show, we have a comment box. But if you want to have someone to watch the show again, make sure they go to iHeart. And it's a great, what we're making this is an educational program for you. And Michael takes out 25, 30 minutes each month to educate you, and it doesn't cost you anything. So you are better informed. Michael, why do I need a workers' comp lawyer?
The best answer would be sort of the converse. You basically, you can't survive without one. In other words, now theoretically you could be on workers' comp and maybe they're not trying to challenge your benefits in that moment, but they will. They're always gunning for somebody's benefits. The injured workers, they don't always understand this, but I tell them their goal, the insurance company's goal, is to pay out as little as they can on every claim. That is their goal. That is absolutely contrary to what your interests are, because you're trying to look out for your future and your earning power is now in question. And it's a very scary proposition about whether you can pay your bills and what type of other jobs can you do if you can't do what you used to do. And it's really affects your future. And so I always tell people, you're going to lose money without the attorney. Maybe not in this specific moment, but eventually you will, especially when it comes to settlement. People don't really know how to analyze the cases properly to get full value. A lot of times people don't even know they can get a specific loss award for a scar of the head, face, or neck. They had neck surgery that was due to a work injury. They can get potentially a year, maybe even 2 years worth of their wage loss benefits on top of what they're already owed because of a scar. And so people tend to lose money without the attorney. So that's sort of how I phrase it, that you can't really go about this without one unless you're okay with the idea of getting ripped off. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be fair and it should be transparent on both sides, but it's about money. And when it's about money, you're going to have conflicting interests, and they're going to send you to doctors who are biased and claim you're recovered and you just have arthritis problems and your work injury was a sprain and not a herniation, these kind of things. So it takes a while for the light bulb to go off for some people, but the earlier they understand this, the better. Get an attorney and you're going to do much better in the long run. And it's a complicated area of law. There's a certification for specialty in workers' comp, which I have, and probably only about 100 attorneys in Pennsylvania who represent injured workers have this and pass the exam and can call themselves a specialist. And they have this exam because it's a very complicated, riddled area of the law now. And they want people to understand who really knows what they're doing in comp versus maybe somebody that's just sort of doing a bunch of other types of cases too.
I got to tell you, because we do this throughout the country, not just in Philadelphia, and I work with other workers' comp attorneys. And I got to tell you, most attorneys, when it comes to workers' comp, their hearts aren't in it. I'm telling you, I mean, personal injury, yes. Workers' comp, no. And to have a law firm that just specializes in one area, and you sure can't say, well, I didn't hire Michael Cardamone because I couldn't afford his services. That's one thing I can promise you. You can't, because you do not have to write a check to Michael. So, Michael, this is something that's so important, and you don't want to screw this up because you only get one shot at it.
Get one shot, and I agree. There are a lot of firms, which I would never name publicly. It's my own opinion. It's my own opinion, that are very robotic and they don't have their heart and soul into it. And I try to tell our potential clients that are sort of wavering, read our Google reviews. These are really heartfelt reviews. They tend not to be one-liners. You can see there's a common theme in them about our firm, that we really care. And my assistant, Shirley, is incredible. She will let our clients talk and vent and talk and talk. She will not cut them off. She's a huge heart. And that's what drew me into hiring her, because I saw how she operates and then how much she cares. And so we have a reputation for really taking our cases sort of personally and really being compassionate to our clients and figuring out ways, how do we make this process as easy as possible for them? Because it's a stressful process with testimony, maybe being spied on, and the checks can be off and erratic, and you're getting opinions from doctors claiming you're exaggerating, and they almost make you feel like a criminal in this system. And so our job is to make it as easy as possible from start to finish. And that's one thing we have a good reputation is the caring part and the compassion part, in addition to the legal skill. That's important, of course. But the humanitarian aspect is, I think, undervalued by a lot of people.
Well, I got to tell you, you could hear me on other stations if you really tried hard, other stations in other markets, not Philadelphia. And I'm telling you, and we have other workers' comp firms. I got to tell you, if I were injured, and I'm putting this on record, there is no other law firm than Michael Cardamon's law firm that I would want to represent me. And they are honest. They do really care. And I'm so glad that we have them here. And by the way, we're going to give you his phone number for those of you who are listening on radio, but we are now covering all of Pennsylvania. So that's really wonderful, not just the Philadelphia area. Michael's number is 215-206-9068. And Michael's firm actually brings you the show, not just when he's on, but every week. We want to thank Michael. Michael, you're the best.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Michael. And Michael will be back with us again next month with more workers' comp educational information. And that'll do it for us this week. We're with you every Tuesday at 10 o'clock and with more Ask the Experts. Enjoy your week. Be careful. God bless. See you next time.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.